My name is Donald Tinney, County Librarian with Sligo County Council Library Services. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all this evening to the first in the Sensibility webinar series. Sensibility is a collaborative project between the Library Service of Sligo, Roscommon and Leitrim County Council. Our first webinar is entitled Too Loud, Too Bright and the Seams on My Socks Hurt, which is presented by the Sensibility Occupational Therapist, Dr. Dorothy Armstrong. I will now call upon Dr. Armstrong to join us and present the paper. Thank you.
Well, you're all really welcome, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here tonight. I'm going to share the screen with you so you'll see the slides and you'll see me in the corner. Before I do that, there's a couple of things I want to make you aware of. One is that these are being recorded, so you'll be able to access this recording at any time. And when I put up my first slide, there's going to be a little link on that will tell you how you can also get the slides, the PDFs, these things. So you can also get these little slides of the talk as well. So that's something for you to know. So you don't have to take notes. You can just relax and listen in. You can watch the recording again. And if you prefer to read it, you'll have a link and you can get that as well. And you can watch the recording on this. When you click into this webinar series, you'll be able to, into Crowdcast, you'll be able to look at the webinar again. Now, I'll be talking and I can't see you, but I know you're all there. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen, at the bottom right of your screen, there's an Ask a Question little icon there. And if you click into that, you can ask questions at any time. You just type your question in. And at the end of my webinar, I'll be opening that and I'll answer your questions, whatever questions you put up. Now, the wonderful thing about this platform that we're using is you can, if you look and there's a question there that someone else has asked that you'd also like to ask, you can just press the vote button beside it. And that means that you're wanting the same question asked. And the more votes a question gets, the higher up it'll go in the list of the ones that I'll get to answer. So you're going to be able to ask your questions and there'll be a little time at the end for me to answer them in that little Ask a Question button. So let me just share the slides with you. Here we go. I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to share this and I'm going to, why is it not? We're having, okay, I'm just going to try that again. Okay, let's try that. Screen. No, for some reason, and this hasn't happened before, it's not actually letting me share the screen. Let me try that again. It doesn't really matter because I can, I'll just talk through it anyway. So it might share the screen for us there. If it doesn't, we won't worry too much. Isn't that terrible now? We had it all along. But I can talk without the screen. You have to just put up with seeing me. And I have a little box of tricks beside me. And I will try and share the screen at another point. It's the strangest thing that's not working for us tonight. But anyway, when it comes to sensory processing challenges, there's certain common experiences that you might have heard. If you're a child or if you're an adult with sensory issues, these are things you might have experienced yourself. Things like, I can't go there to eat as it smells wrong. So that whole experience of going into maybe a cafe and finding that you can't eat there because it just doesn't smell right, or clothes you can't wear because the texture of the clothes feel wrong, or certain colors or patterns making the person feel sick, or the loudness of things. It's too loud and I just can't think, or it's too loud and it hurts and I can't cope. Please allow me to move as it makes me feel more comfortable. Or even the one where you could have somebody walking in a shopping mall and the feeling that everyone else is walking unpredictably and this is making it very difficult for me. And then brightness, things being too bright and not being able to. Isn't that funny? Alton might work on that in the background and see why is it blocking me sharing my screen. So there are some of the common experiences you might find when with people with sensory processing difficulties. And you might have a child who's nonverbal, so you're trying to figure out what the sensory issues they might have. or you might be an adult yourself and you might be aware of your own sensory processing difficulties, or have a young person who's verbal and is able to tell you. And as you know, there are many different senses. There's the visual sense, that's the seeing, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, your balance, your hearing, your touch, and proprioception. Now, that might be new to you. Proprioception is the nerve endings in your muscles and joints that tell you where you are in space. So I have my hand up there, and you can even be doing this behind the screen. Even if I close my eyes, I know where my hand is. And that's because of the little messages that are going from my muscles and joints telling me where I am. So for some people, we can be feeling those sensations a little more than other people might. I often say to the people I work with that they have supersonic senses, extra. So they've extra senses, and that can make life quite stressful for people when you're feeling things and you're hearing things much louder than you would normally. So when we think of sensory processing disorder, we might find that a sensory processing disorder can happen all on its own. Now, I don't like the word disorder personally, but we can call it a difference if you like. It's like the environment makes it a disorder. We often say in our family that if you were a farmer living in a nice, quiet farm and it was all quiet around you, you probably wouldn't have a sensory processing disorder. The world has got very loud. You often hear the young lads going by in the car, and the cars are so noisy, and supermarkets have the music playing and they're all very bright, and it's ramping up things for people who are sensory sensitive. So with the sensory processing disorder, the kind of things you might notice, and I'm just going to see, and it's still not working for me, but I'm going to put my own PowerPoint up in the background so I can see what I'm doing with you. So with the sensory processing disorder, some of the things you might notice are that the person or yourself, if you're an adult, you might not like brushing your teeth might be difficult. I've had clients with a lot of difficulties brushing their teeth. The toothpaste is all wrong and you have to go and get your own toothpaste. And if the toothpaste that your child or your adult doesn't like the taste of isn't in the shops, you're in trouble. So little things like that where the sense of taste is much stronger, or the person is very limited maybe in what they eat because they genuinely taste it more. I think of it as sometimes like it must be like eating lemons. It must be just too much for them. So too much in the mouth and not liking bright lights, that might be another sign. And it's really genuine. And that's the thing that we as parents or people with sensory difficulties know, but many people don't get this. They don't understand what it's like to have sensory processing differences. So strong smells really bothering the person. So the child in the classroom who can't eat their lunch because the person next to them maybe has the yogurt. So becoming a very picky eater, finding it difficult to eat in certain places, even the whole kind of clumsiness or tripping, and because you don't know where your own body is in space and you're overwhelmed by all this input all of the time. Now, I've had clients teenagers in school settings who can't think because of the buttons on their shirt, the uniform, they're feeling it so much more. And it can be really debilitating when you have sensory processing differences. Not liking to be touched, which can be hard as a parent if your child doesn't like to be hugged, if hugging feels to them like it's sore, or they need to be hugged on their own terms. They might come and give you a hug and they're fine with that, but an unexpected hug might be difficult. These are all signs of a sensory processing disorder. Not liking to wear certain clothes, and we'll all be familiar with this. Those of you that know me will know I have two adult sons, one with dyspraxia, and my other adult son has Asperger's with a lot of sensory issues. I know Asperger's isn't a word used anymore, but was used when he was diagnosed all those years ago. So as a mom, I cut all the tags off the clothes, and we had to go and we had to buy particular clothes in particular shops, and they had to be very soft, and that's all okay. It's really respecting where the person is coming from and seeing how you can get around things and get them what they need. The toe walkings is another sign of a sensory processing disorder. So walking up on your toes can be, and if I was live with you now, I'd get you all to stand up. You know what? No one can see you. If you can at all and you're at home, just stand up on your feet and now stand up on your toes. And what you'll realize is when you're standing on your toes, you're going to feel more through your legs. You'll be feeling that more. So sometimes people are toe walking because they're looking for that input. They're not getting enough when they're flat on the ground. So they're looking to come up. And a really good technique for this is heavy boots. And my son, Tom, actually wore heavy boots for all secondary school included, to keep the heel down. It's very important to get the heel down because the little tendon in the back of your leg, your Achilles, can tighten. So the heavy boots might really work wonders for your child, and they look very trendy as well. Nice pair of heavy boots. So that's part of the sensory processing, that poor body awareness, and the little bit of heavy boot can work. And not liking, the hair, not liking to, COVID has worked great for our sensory processing kids, because to get your hair cut, many people, adults included, with sensory processing disorders, they don't like getting the hair cut, going to the hairdressers, the scissors, and the worst is the razor. And the razor can genuinely be painful, and it can send a horrible sensation down the back of their spine, right to the bottom of their back. They can feel it, the razor. So it's really trying to get other people to believe that. And I know myself this from when Tom was little and we used to go to the hairdressers or the barbers, and they would not believe us, no matter how often we'd say, do not use the electric razor. It would still be pulled out, to the extent that we always had to be there to say, no, don't use that. That's not going to work. And it's interesting how neurotypical people just find it so difficult to understand. They expect neurodiverse people, that's people with things like autism, dyspraxia, ADHD, to adapt to them, but not the other way around. Just simple little things make such a difference when you have a sensory processing disorder. I mentioned the tags on clothes there. Enjoying being squeezed, the tight hugs being very therapeutic and very relaxing. And then other signs you might get is being getting a meltdown, getting overstimulated by too much of something. Fight, flight, freeze. So you can get the person going into a freeze and shutting down, and that's dreadful for them, or a full-blown meltdown where they're very, very distressed. So I mentioned that. So yeah, they're all the signs that you might have where sounds are too loud, the person's overwhelmed by what they see, the person is a picky eater, or they're quite maybe find it hard to wear different clothes. And that's one side of it. And I wish I could share my slides, because the next slide's a really good one. And it's why, let me just try again. You never know. Nope. So the reason why this is all so important is about regulation. So regulation means feeling just right, feeling happy, calm, focused, and in the zone and able to learn. And the first piece of being able to regulate is minding your sensory self. And with young children, we do this for them. And as you get older and into adulthood, it's learning about this and really respecting this in yourself, knowing that I get deregulated if I'm not minding my sensory self and learning a bit about my sensory self. So we call that the green zone. When you're in the green zone, you're focused. And there are many ways to get in the green zone, but one of the first ones is your sensory self, getting things right for you, so that your sensory self is in a good place and you can be regulated. And that's really what this talk is about. And as we work through the talk, I want you to be thinking about this. Have maybe your child, or you be a student you work with, or you yourself, if you have sensory issues, think about that. Maybe have a pen and paper beside you and be jotting down things you're learning and ideas, and think, okay, I have a sensitivity to touch, so I might try this. So be jotting down an idea, because what I'd love for you is, by the end of this talk, if you'd have an idea of what might go in your own little sensory toolkit. Okay? So yeah, that's there. I'm just looking to see whether Ulton had any. So what I want you to think about now, those of you, now I have little sensory sensitivities myself, so I get this. But for those of you that don't, I want you to think about this. I want you to imagine, and you can close your eyes if it helps you. Imagine you're in a very busy airport. And now this would be when COVID is over, you're in a busy airport and you're all thinking, wouldn't that be lovely? But you're in a really busy airport, but you're late for your flight and there are crowds of people everywhere and you have to negotiate through the crowds, and over the microphone is coming, such and your flight is really late, your flight is on, you've got to get to your flight, and your name is being called. Now, for a moment, think about how you'd feel, okay? You'd feel anxious. You might feel angry. You might even feel like hitting somebody. Of course you wouldn't, but you might feel it if someone touched off you. Now, that's something we need to hold in our head, because that's what it can be like for somebody who is overloaded from a sensory perspective. And if they're nonverbal, if they don't have words to tell us, we don't know, we're not understanding what's going on for them, the level of distress. So when we see someone do something like hit out or shout, we put on our detective glasses and we wonder, is that sensory or is that behavior? Maybe it's sensory, maybe they're completely overwhelmed by something and we really need to know what this is and do some detective work. Now, the other hand, the other kind of end of this would be if you are, I want you to imagine again now, get you imagining, you're sitting in, and I hope it's not like now, but you're sitting in a busy lecture space and the talk is really, really boring. And there's the lights are down and you're too hot and you're told not to move. You're told you have to sit still and concentrate and not fidget, okay? Now imagine how you'd feel. You'd probably start to want to fall asleep. Your system would go down. So if we talk about the green zone as regulated, you're now going into what we call the blue zone, which is tired, bored. You might even get a bit cross after a while if you're told you can't move. And that's the other side of it, because some people can be sensitive to sensory input, and some people can under-register it, so they're not getting enough of it. And you can have the same body, and for some things you're oversensitive. It could be like sound and touch, oversensitive, but maybe that other system, that proprioceptive system I talked to you about, where you are in space, might be under-registering. So you're not getting enough of that, which means you really need to move. You need to move more than other people do. So when we talk about sensory processing disorder, we can talk about sensitivities and we can talk about under-registering things as well. And you might notice both in yourself or your child. So let's move on now and talk about those different systems. So the first system there is that tactile system. That's the touch system. So that can be very tricky. You can be very tactile defensive. So touch is very irritating. And what we've learned is for most people, heavy touch is very calming. So if you get the lovely heavy touch, like a nice deep hug, that's very calming. And I'll talk you through some other techniques as well. Deep touch, deep pressure, and many of you out there will already know this, it's keystone in getting you back into that lovely regulated green zone. It's deep touch is very, very calming. So we need to think about that, and I'll talk through ways that that can be afforded to a person. And also when it comes to the tactile system, we really need to respect that person's clothing preferences and not force it. So a lot of our young people can't wear jeans, and that's okay. Just find something that's going to work for them. So they mightn't be able to wear jeans. You might be cutting tags off. You might find the sports shirts in school with the emblems on it. You're putting the cotton underneath it, or you're wearing a vest underneath it for comfort. So you're thinking about their clothing preferences and you're working around it. And those of us as parents will know, trying to find the socks without the seams. M&S used to sell them, and you'd be buying a load of them. You'd find something and buy loads of it in different colors. Finding something that works. I had a wonderful client who she lived near the most amazing shoe shop, and her child wouldn't go to the shoe shop because it was very distressing and had huge sensory issues around her feet. And this amazing shoe shop let the mom come, bring home 10 little pairs of shoes for her daughter to try on and see what worked. So if you live near, sometimes those local shops are really helpful. And I remember that when my own son was younger, the local shops, the smaller shop where you could go in and it's quiet and take your time with things, working really well. But the main message is respect and compassion. So respect the clothing preferences that person has. And you can often negotiate around a school uniform. But the main things with the school uniform is wash them to the nth. Keep washing them. You know, when you buy something first and it's all icky, it's all it's tight and too crispy, and if you wash it, it kind of softens. And sometimes you have to use the dryer with people with sensory processing disorders or sensitivities, because if you dry it naturally, it's all hard. So the softer the better, and your nice softeners work really well. The other thing with that tactile system is the fidget tools, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. Just yeah, I remember cutting the tags off, and you wouldn't know what age it was for anymore. I'd be thinking, what age was that for? I'm not sure. So the tactile little toys are a great thing, and you probably all, any of you that have yourselves have sensory issues, or your children have sensory issues, making a little tactile box for the touch system can be great. And I'll show you some of these now. I like that one. That's a lock and block, and it's very satisfying. And you're trying to find the thing that's going to really work. So trying out things, and we're going to have things to borrow from the libraries, and I'm so excited about this. We're going to have a collection of things that you can borrow in the Leitrim, Roscommon and Sligo libraries. And of course, this happens in Kildare Library as well. You can go in and you can borrow, and all you'll need is just a letter saying that you yourself or your child has an additional need. You don't even need to say what it is. And then you'll get a special little ticket, and you'll be able to borrow things just like you would a book. So you'll be able to try stuff. And I've been really lucky now, because I've been the OT and I've got to have such fun picking out all the toys and pieces for them. And I've a load of these tactile things. There's another one there. That's very popular at the moment. Very satisfying. And just that movement it's very tactile. It's very calming, and it puts you in that green zone, that regulated zone. It gives you the bit of movement you need. It hits a lot of boxes for people, but you need to find out what they'd like. There used to be a thing where they'd put a bit of Velcro under the desk in a classroom and think that'll work for everyone. Wonderful idea, and I love the spirit of it, but it doesn't work for everyone because everyone's different. You need to find your own little tools. There's another one now. I love that. You can squish it about, and we'll have those in the collections. And then I have, like, this one is a spiky ball, and that's lovely feel off that as well. And it's finding the things that'll work for you. Look at that fidget cube. That's a lovely one, a little fidget cube. In secondary school, you might be looking at a bit of blue tack, or these are great. I've got some of these in our collection as well. These are just things you can pull at. And when I talk about this different systems, I'll kind of talk about why that's important. I've loads of little bits in my box here. I came prepared in case things went kibosh on us. There's a nice thing, a squeezy to squeeze. So there's loads of little ideas there for tactiles that will work for you. And with and again, it's really important in school. A lot of our kids with sensory processing disorder, you can't sit still and focus. You need to be able to move. When you're using a tactile in the classroom setting, you're trying to be really inclusive. So what you want to do is use it under the desk so you're not distracting anyone else with it, because it's a tool for the hands and not the eyes anyway. The eyes, if possible, need to be on teacher, and then the little fidget can be under the desk, or in the pencil case if they're not using it. So that's the tactile. And then the other thing I talked about was the other thing with the tactile system. The touch system is deep touch or deep pressure. And you'll relate to this, because do you ever notice if you hurt yourself, what do? You do a deep rub, don't you? You'd rub in a deep rub, because we all intuitively know deep touch is calming. And when our children are upset, what do we want to do? We want to give them a big hug. Now, some of our sensory processing kids maybe don't want the big hug, but it's our instinct. And those instincts are there for a reason. They're there because the deep touch is very calming. So there's different ways you can get that. One would be through your weighted blankets. And your weighted blankets, the general thing with the weighted blanket is don't go over 10% of your weight. I have other ones. I'll run over the side of the room now and show you another one. Here's Larry the lizard, and he's weighted, and you can put that on your shoulder, and that's very calming. That's just a bit of deep peace. And you can get these. This is kind of cute because it's a toy, and it's nice because you can wash it. But it doesn't have to look like that. It could just be a little weighted lap pad you have on your lap that just helps you feel a little bit calm, because deep touch is calming. The other things you can do is give the deep touch in with the side of the arms there, with the child's permission or adult's permission, putting pressure in on the two sides, but never use your thumbs because thumbs hurt. Just the palms of your hand, little push in with their permission to the pressure they want. But one of the best ones to use, and I can't show you the slide, but I know myself, and Tom really appreciated this as he was growing up, on really bad days when somebody's very overwhelmed and very upset, a technique that can be lovely is just lying down on your sofa or getting the cushions off the sofa, put them on the floor so the child's or the adult's really comfortable, and then getting a ball, like a beach ball that's kind of deflated, or a therapy ball, and we'll have those for lending. And we'll even have the rollers for like little blow-up rollers. And you just roll over the person's back, never their head, obviously, never their bum, their back and the back of their legs with their permission and with the pressure they want. And that can be incredibly calming. And we used to do things like turn all the lights down and get this out, and you could have a bit of soft music on and maybe a visual tool. And I'll show you the visual tools later, just so that person can really come down into the regulate again. If it's the sensory overwhelm that's deregulating, it's a sensory strategy is going to get you back. But we always need to be very careful not to overwhelm that person, and always with their permission. Never force anything, never push too much, because you can get a shutdown. So as I said to you, you can get a meltdown, but you can also get a shutdown. And I really want to communicate the shutdown to you, because it can look like the person is fine, but they're not. They're shut down, and they tend to be a paleness in the face, not responding to you at all. And that's an overload as well. It doesn't have to be the meltdown, it can be a shutdown. So that's that touch system. And again, you'll be able to access all these slides and stuff after this. The other system I talked to you about was the proprioceptive system, and that's the muscles and the joints and knowing where they are. This is a powerful system for getting you nice and alert and into that regulated zone so you can focus and learn. This is one we'd use a lot maybe in school, or if doing homework or study if you're an adult, or just in your job trying to get yourself regulated. It's input, resistance through the muscles and joints is really helpful. And the bigger the joint, the better. That's why those trampolines are so great. Now, I don't want you ringing into me and suing me for saying trampolines. They must have a net around them. There must be only one person on that trampoline and at a time, and you need to be watching someone. Trampolines are dangerous, so be careful. You can get them put into the ground, or the mini rebounders can be really helpful as well. But you do get great proprioceptive input up through the hips and the knees on those. The other things you can use for that are even something like these fidgets where I'm pulling. I'm getting a bit of that input that I like, or the squeezy ones. I usually have a little squeezy one on my table, but I don't have them there today. So the squeezy ones, or the TheraBand you'd use in, the physio TheraBands for pulling, or anything squeezy will really help. Or little exercises you can do, like push against a wall, or if your child is getting very deregulated, or as an adult, just getting someone to push against your own hands and push against each other. That's getting you the input you need to get into just right. The other things would be little ones. Now I want you to try these at home, because we're half an hour in and you might find yourself dipping. So things you can try to get the proprioceptive input at home is pushing your hands together. So try that now with me. Push your hands together. Another way you can do that is like this and pull apart. So pull. Another way is pressing like that. And there are little things you can do that give you the input that you need to wake yourself up. You might find you're waking up a little bit now. Excuse me. Another one is, I'm going to have a little drink. Put your hands on your head and press down. That's another way. And that'll give you what you need. Hugging yourself, pushing in. You're pushing and you're still applying pressure in. So they're all really good ways. And you can even put your hand on the side of your seat. I'll do it now. Hand on the side of your seat and push up. So lift your bum off the chair, but keep your feet on the floor. And that gives you that proprioceptive input up through your arms. And that's all really helpful. And one of my little clients, I was doing a group on transitioning to secondary school. And one of my lovely lads told me another way where he said what he does is he puts his hand under the seat of the chair and pushes upwards. And nobody notices that. And it gives him what he needs in order to stay alert. So there's some of the proprioceptive pieces. And then the other one is that kind of balance system or vestibular system, to give it its fancy word. So when you move your head, and you can move your head now as I'm talking, when you move your head, there's little tubes in your ears, in your inner ears, there's little tubes and little hairs, and liquid goes over the hairs, and that sends messages so your body knows where you are in space. So as well as your muscles and joints, it's also where your head is, tells you where you are in space. And what's important to know is head movements are very alerting. So if you shake your head out now, you'll find you're really waking up. Like a little head shake will wake up. And do you ever notice yourself doing that? You might shake out your head and you're waking yourself up. But the thing about it is, and a lot of our young people might really enjoy spinning. And of course, spinning is great, but spinning can overwhelm you. So maybe after the spinning, try some of the proprioceptive pieces, like pushing hands together, or maybe pushing against a wall, or doing one of these, or the head, or you could try some of the deep touch ones, like the deep hug, to bring back down to the green, back down to the regulated. So if someone is hypersensitive, very sensitive to the movements of the head, they can be very fearful of ordinary movement. And they can be fearful of even going down, up and down stairs, they'd be hanging onto the side, or up and down curbs, and all of that might make them a little bit nervous. So the best thing for them is the nice linear movements are nice and calming. And it all makes sense, because when a child is tiny in a pram, what do you do to calm them? You're back and forth, you're back and forth. And of course, if you work with an occupational therapist who specializes in sensory integration, they'll help you with this. But we're just talking about ways to calm and ways to get that person back into the green zone, back regulating again. So we have, as well as people who are kind of very sensitive to these movements, we also have our sensory seekers. And we all know our sensory seekers, and they tend to be seeking the head movements and the proprioceptive movements as well, the crash and the bump and all of that, really seeking all of that. So they really need movement breaks, and that's why those movement breaks are great in school. And they don't have to be anything wonderful. They can just be going out to the pitch and running around, or throwing a ball back and forward, or any kind of movement is going to really help them. But movement at the desk is also important. So those ones I told you about. And then the move and sit cushions are great. The little wobble cushions that you can sit on and get a bit of movement. That's giving you a bit of head movement. Of course, if you have DCD dyspraxia, those little round disco sits might be difficult for you, because your balance is hard to have, and your core, you need good core muscles for those. So you might do a little wedge as well instead. A blow up wedge is better. And we're going to have all of that in the collection for you to try and see what works. So the next system we talk about is that hearing system. And this is personally where I am very sensitive. I am personally very sensitive to sound, and I wish the world wasn't so loud. World is very, very loud, and I don't understand how people tolerate the loudness of it. But I know for the people that I work with, it's much worse for them. It must be so difficult to be bombarded with sound. And what we're noticing here is that, and you might as a grown-up notice this, you're in you're out maybe socially, and you can only tune into one voice. So if lots of people are talking at once, you're lost, you're not hearing, you find it hard to tune out background sound. And it's the same for the children. They're finding it very hard to tune it out. So they might turn the television up and you're wondering, why are you turning that up when you're sensitive to sound? They're trying to tune, they can't tune you out, so it needs to come up. So that difficulty tuning out background sound and being very distracted by it, and then sounds in general being hard, like gym halls are hard because there's an echo. The sound of the bells going off in school can be very difficult. But if you warning, it really helps. If you let them know the alarm's coming off, and it's that again, respect, sensitivity, and understanding is what's required. So theatres, cinemas, and what's wonderful is people are getting more and more aware, and this is just great. Like cinemas now might have a special showing for people with sound sensitivities. Some of the shops, like our local Super Value, I'm sure yours as well, there's a special night. They call it an autism night, but it's for anyone with sensory processing difficulties, where it's quieter and it's not as bright, and it all works really well. And this is what we advocate for. And this is the beauty of the sensibility program, because libraries are fabulous anyway, but now within each county, one branch library in each county is going to have a sensory space. Leitrim has them already, and we're going to have one in Roscommon and one in Sligo. So if the person becomes overwhelmed, they can go into the sensory room, and that will really help. So with the sound and with becoming overwhelmed with sound, we're going to have ear defenders in our collection for children to try. Now, don't worry. If you put the ear defenders on, it doesn't mean you can't hear, because I know that would worry and you'd wonder, they're going to have an accident because they, it's not, it just drowns out the sound. So we'll have the ear defenders for you to try in the collection. But chewing gum actually helps, because if you're chewing the gum, you're closing off some of your little hearing system. So it's like, do you know what it is? It's like the way if you ever tape your voice and you hear it back and you think, that doesn't sound like me. There's a reason for that. It's when you're talking, when you're speaking, you're shutting down some of your sound system. So you never quite hear your own voice unless it's taped. And that's where the chewing gum comes in. Chewing the gum will drown out some of the sound. Chewing gum is also very good. You see, we talked about muscles and joints. That's a joint. Your jaw is a joint. So if you're trying to wake yourself up, chewing something is great for concentration. That's why if we're ever doing a bit of study, a lot of us put on a lot of weight because we're eating away. We're trying to keep awake because instinctively we know that if we're using that joint, we're waking ourselves up, but we're putting the wrong things in. So kind of learning about the systems really work. As you're getting older, your late teens, and as an adult, you might want to try some of the noise cancelling headphones. And there's some great products on the market, but they're a dreadful price. You wouldn't give those to a child because they'd break them. So try finding different things, or tuning noise out with other noise, where you might have your personal stereo set and your headphones. And I'll be honest with you, I do this in certain supermarkets that are too loud. I'll go in and I'll have my own sound, maybe some nice music that's calming, and that can work well. So knowing what really works for you, and what you're going to try in terms of that sound system. And as I said, warning of sound going up is important. Having control is important because it's dreadfully painful. The other system is the vision system, seeing. And this is a fascinating one. When I'm in my practice, now I mainly work on Zoom, but I'm in the practice one day a week, I have to be very careful what I wear, because many of the people that I see find lots of patterns quite not only distracting, but difficult. I declined yesterday described this beautifully. He said, some patterns just aren't right, and they make me feel frustrated, or they make me feel nearly sick. And I need to respect that when I go in. So I'd wear quite muted colours. I know muted colours on now. I wouldn't wear a very colourful black and white piece, because that can be difficult for people. So certain patterns, or noticing fine detail and getting bothered by it, it can be part of a sensory processing disorder too. So things just not feeling right and feeling uneasy or almost queasy because it's not right. Lights feeling far too bright. So those kind of, sometimes you see people with the hood up and you think, you know, are they dangerous? They've the hood up. They might have a sensory processing difficulty where they're trying to drown out some of that light. And the sunglasses are great as well. Sunglasses or transition lens, hoods up, peaked caps, anything that because some places are far too bright, too white light, too bright. And then I wanted to show you kind of, for some people, like reading can be difficult because it's all too bright. The white on the page is too bright. I find these great. These are little coloured overlays. That's a yellow one, and we're going to have those in the collection. That's a purple one, and there's a little reading tracker with the yellow. But that just calms everything down for you. So if you're reading on a white page and it's too bright, something like that might really help to tone the colours down. And we're going to have packs of those for you to try out when we get the collection up and running. Or having a different colour over a screen can really work. Or you can get the special glasses that really work as well. Bono has those glasses. I don't know, are they for light? But I'm glad he wears them because it makes them kind of trendy. I think he wears the little yellow ones. Not that young people know who Bono is anymore, I suppose. But that visual system then, understanding patterns and details, black and white swirly patterns can be difficult. I notice oranges can be difficult. Oranges, you know, the red and black, the warning colors, and they're warning colors for a reason, but they can be phenomenally difficult for someone with a sensory processing difficulty where vision's a problem. Just look at this. This is a gorgeous thing. This is a, I hope you're enjoying that. That's called a visual timer. We never used that as a timer. When Tom was younger and he used to be lying on that sofa and I'd be doing the deep pressure, we used to use that over his back. Or not over his back, we do the thing over his back and he'd watch that, and that's just gorgeous. And I have many clients who just love that. I've run groups for people. I had this gorgeous group pre-COVID for young teenagers, autistic teenagers, and we'd have all these things in, and they used to love all that. That used to be very popular. Now I should put that away. I'd be mesmerized by that. So little things like that. Or here's another visual too, the little glitter wand, and it goes up and down. Isn't that gorgeous? Looking at it going up and down. I prefer that because it's slower. If you're an adult, you could use a lava lamp. I don't recommend lava lamps for young children because they get very hot and I worry they'll burn their cells. You can get the light shows as well. We have those here, the little lamp and light show that goes on, and that can be gorgeous, dark in the room and have the little light show, all to get you feeling regulated again when the world is overwhelmed. And many of my clients just like those kind of darkening the spaces down so they can really relax. So that's that light system, and there's some tools and ideas there. The next system is the mouth. I talked a little bit about that jaw. That's a joint, and it'll help you get into that regulated green zone and be able to concentrate by chewing. Crunchy food or chewy food is going to work really well. Calming, you know, sucking through a sports bottle, sucking up is also something that will get you into a just right piece. And you think about it, these are things you instinctively do anyway when you're trying to focus. You crunch at stuff, you drink a lot of probably coffee, but water would be better. But if you can suck it through a sports bottle, the sucking will help, the chewing will help. All of that's good. I know when Tom was a little lad doing homework, we would have had the sugar-free jellies for him to chew on. He had his drink through his bottle, plenty of movement breaks. We did a lot of the homework on the trampoline. He'd be bouncing on that. We might do the spelling on that because sitting still was difficult. And it's really thinking outside of the box. Take away, sit still and focus, because that just does not work. It does not work. If there's one message I'd love to get out into the world is that, you know, and we might be visually sensitive. So somebody moving a lot might bother us, but we need to own that. That's us, not them. They need to move. And as the adult, we need to find ways to regulate ourselves if we're getting deregulated by their movement. And that could be like having something to squeeze as we're working with them, or having some, you know, our own chewing and sucking. Now, the mouth, I have to mention food with the mouth, because there can be huge sensory sensitivities around the mouth. The mouth is a very sensitive organ. And so food can be very difficult. Now, it's very important to go really slow with that. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because I could take the whole night. But what I want you to know is please don't force food into a person's mouth when they don't like it, because it's in terms of autonomy and sense of control, that's a horrible experience. So you're looking at the palette they like. It could be color palettes in terms of food, different textures. So colors, textures, tastes. Look at what they're eating already, and then think of something within that palette and slowly add it, very, very slowly, maybe on the corner of a plate. It's okay if food can't touch on a plate. That's not a problem as long as they're healthy. Having some food on a little plate and some on a big plate, who cares as long as they eat? Some people can't even have a sandwich because it's too many tastes at once, and it is a real overload. So go slow with that. And look, if they eat the same thing every day and it's healthy, who cares? That's great. If you can work it up to your 5 a day and you have your proteins and you have your right mix and it's the same every day, that's okay, as long as you're talking about a full range in that day. But as I say, I could be talking about that all night. There's also jewelry that can be nice. Obviously, we're not going to have jewelry in our collection because that wouldn't be very hygienic. But you know that there's lovely things for chewing, little bracelets or necklaces that you can chew at. The little chewy sticks, chewies you can put on the end of pencils can be good because that's very regulating as well. So the sense of smell then is the last one for me to talk about. And the sense of smell is just be really, really careful with that, because the sense of smell can be incredibly overwhelming. So really, I guess, believe it when they say that's making me sick, I can't smell that. So when I work, like when I'm in the clinic, you'll see behind me I have a candle on because I like, and you'll see behind me there's a little burner, because I like personally the oils. I find the oils very relaxing. I like lavender. I might mix lavender and centrola. And when I'm in my clinic, I will ask first. I wouldn't just light the burner. I would ask, is this going to be okay for you? Do you mind if we light this? Same with if I want to light a candle, because it's just important that I respect where they're coming from. I'm also interested to know how they are with that sense of smell. So being really careful with the sense of smell, trying the oil, you can try the oil burners and see, does it bring regulation? Some smells are really overwhelming. And I know when my own son was younger and we'd be on holidays or something, and you get a farmy smell, like a smell of the silage or manure or whatever, and he would feel very sick. I used to have a little bit of lavender oil in my purse. I used to have a whole kit in the purse. It's younger. I'd have the lavender oil in the purse and hanky, and I'd put a tiny drop on it and just fold it over because you don't want the oil connecting with your skin. And I just give it to him so he could have that to smell as he went by, so he wasn't feeling sick with the other smells. I've had other clients who have grown lavender in their back and taken a few sprigs with them to have, or kind of stuffing the lavender, drying it and putting it into a little cushion for themselves. Sometimes you need a smell to cover a smell. But you might, like watching the perfumes, I'd be very careful what perfumes I'd wear in work, if any, and what smells would be there. So keeping an eye on that. Coffee can be a problem as well. So the books I'd recommend, you won't see these books, of course. I just want to wait. When you get the slides, you'll get the books and you'll see the books. I just remember this book for me. There's a book I'm recommending called Picky Picky Pete. And if you're a mom with a child with a sensory processing difficulty, I challenge you to read that and not be crying by the end of it. It's the most beautiful book about a little boy and his struggles and his mom, and how you'll just love it. You'll see what I mean. And then there's the classics: Too Loud, Too Bright, Too Fast, Too Tight. But where's where I nicked my title from? There's The Zones of Regulation is another really good book that I'd recommend to you as well. A bit complicated, but a good book. But you'll see those books. Now, I'm going to have to read this out to you very carefully, because get a pencil there for me, and I'm going to read something out to you, because this is the contact for the slides that you didn't see. It's sligolibrary.ie/sense, which is SENSE hyphen ABILITY/ and I'll say that again, sligolibrary.ie/ like that, sense, that's SENSE hyphen ability, ABILITY/. That's where you're going to go to get the slides. And if you want to, I give a number of different talks. If you want to go on my own database for any talks I give, I'm going to give you the email. You won't be emailing me, you'll be emailing my office manager, Alan. And his email is office, OFFICE, achieve, ACHIEVEOT @gmail.com. I'm going to give you that one again. Office, achieveot @gmail.com. OFFICEACHIEVEOT @gmail.com. So I'm going to have a look there at your questions. I'd love to see you, but I can't see you. But your questions will be enough. So somebody's asking if they register for, once you've registered for this talk, you'll automatically be able to get into any of the other talks. You don't have to go to them all. You can just, you can pick whichever ones you want to go to and zone in just the way you did tonight. So you just through the same piece. And if you go in through Crowdcast, you'll get this recording, and we've been keeping this up for a while. So, and they are on every Tuesday at 7:30 for the next 6 weeks. Oh, I see Alton's responded to that already. Hi, Dorothy. Should we encourage children with sensory processing differences in smell and taste to try different foods anyway? Hello, Anne-Marie. Very gently, Anne-Marie. Just be very careful. There's the whole piece around the sense of autonomy for a person, and where if we force anything into them, we're taking away their sense of control. So do encourage them, but very carefully, looking at the range of food they already eat and see, can we add something small within that palette? So some of my clients will only eat white food. So you're looking for other white foods that you might introduce, and then you might go with a color that's close to white and see, will that work? Or it could be a certain texture they like, and you might introduce it that way. So there's someone else, and Alton's responded to that. Hi, Dorothy. Will people be able to turn up at the library and borrow these items? I flipped on. Sorry. Will people be able to turn up to the library and borrow these items on spec, or do they need a referral and or appointment to borrow them? Kieran, once the libraries open up again, this is going to work pretty much the way you'd borrow a book. Now, you will need to have something, maybe a letter from an OT or a GP, or even if the child is in mainstream or special school, something from one of the teachers, just to say that your child or as an adult has an additional need. The reason why we want that is these toys are fabulous and anyone would love them. But these kids, we want them for this particular population. I keep saying children, but they can be adults as well. So you'll just need your letter. And then you'll go to your library in Sligo, Roscommon or Leitrim, and we've the same system in Kildare. Go to the library with that, and they will then give you a special ticket, and then you'll be able to borrow it just the way you would a book. So we will have the catalogues. We're going to have hard copies of the catalogues, and we're also going to have the catalogues online, and we're nearly there. We've picked everything, just going to take us a while to get it all together with COVID times. So, and we will let you all know once we have that ready. We're very excited about it. And you know yourself how important this is. These are families that don't get much, and we want to give. And it'll be free, so it'll be amazing. And you can borrow something for up to 3 weeks, like a book. If you want to renew it, you can renew it as long as someone else isn't looking for it. And if the person really likes it, then you can buy it, or not. But you waste, it can be so expensive buying things and your child doesn't like it, doesn't smell right or doesn't look right. Here's another one. I've done that one. How do you manage bedtime routine for small children? So what you want to do for little children is get them into a good regulated zone. So if the routine for routine is a great word. Stick to the same routine. Very important, they're not on any tech for a good while before bedtime. The light from those devices will affect a thing called your melatonin levels, and you need your melatonin to sleep. Once it gets dark, you have the melatonin kicks in, so you can sleep. So those devices will will make sleep very difficult. So get your routine. Have the same thing you do. If it's a small child, it might be they might be having their little wash, they're doing their teeth. If teeth are distressing, teeth, then the wash. And then if they need it, you can give them some of that deep kind of touch, the ball over the back, the nice story, and then the lights down. But the routine, look, we could do a whole night on bedtime routine for little children, but routine is really important. The same thing every night. What types of behavior indicate sensory processing problems in little ones? You'll find the secret is look at what they're avoiding. So if they're sensitive to stuff, they'll avoid it. So watch, what are they avoiding, and put on your detective glasses. What are they seeking? So if they're doing a lot of something, a lot of stuffing stuff in the mouth, or a lot of movement that's crash and bump, that probably means they're looking for more of that proprioceptive movement. So it might be giving them more of that during the day. And when you get the slides, you'll be able to think, okay, that's what my child needs. Watch what they're doing and consistently doing. And that tells you if they're avoiding, they might be sensitive. If they're seeking, that might be something they're under registering and need more of. I hope that's helpful. I've heard that playing calm music at a low volume throughout the night can help with the morning routine. Rory, yes, we have so experienced this. With neurotypical children, that's children who don't have things like autism, dyspraxia, ADHD, we would say keep everything quiet and turn off everything. With our kids, it's different because they're hyper alert to sound. So any kind of random noise startles and wakes them. So sometimes you're better off with a little bit of white noise in the background. And my own son would have done that as a little one, had white noise in the background. Now that might be calming music or the sound of rain or whatever, but it blocks out random noise and that can really help. So that's a great point, Rory. It can help with the morning routine because they've had a better night's sleep because they startle so easily. And the other thing with bedtime is a lot of our kids overheat. So get the room nice and cool during the day, but then of course you have to close the window at night because any nighttime noises bother them. So make sure the room is nice and cool before they get in there, and then you can have your nice white noise to have for them in the background. There's another question there. Is it unusual for a child to eat a wide range of food when in primary school, but now become much fussier about food textures, food touching on the plate, and range of food? That's Deirdre. That's an interesting one, Deirdre. It's usually the other way round, where the sensory sensitivities to food, because to be honest with you, as we age, our senses decline. So when I was little, my sense of taste was huge. You know, I was a very picky eater, whereas now I can eat a lot more because I'm older and that sense is gone. So that's interesting. What might be happening there is sometimes if you're very anxious, and obviously being a teenager is such an anxious time, if you'd a period of anxiety, your senses are all heightened. So you might be looking at that. It might be worth thinking, I wonder, is she a little anxious about anything? Food touching on the plate, the range of food. That's interesting. And it wouldn't be usual. It's probably something around anxiety. I wonder, is there anything else? Keep an eye on that and just make sure that she's not restricting what she eats. If obviously she starts seriously restricting and losing a lot of weight, I would just go to the GP and have a little chat and make sure all is well there. But that's probably just she's a little bit anxious. She's probably had sensory issues as a little one and they're emerging with anxiety. That's all the questions there that I can see. So that's fantastic. Great stuff. And I'm just glad because I didn't know when I didn't have my slides, I wasn't sure were you seeing anything. So Delighted to be with you all tonight, and I hope you all learned a lot. The main message I'd like to give you is compassion and respect for people with sensory issues, and change what we can for them and advocate as much as we can. And that's why I'm so excited about the library project and all that's going to be happening. The 3 sensory rooms, 1 in each library, the collection of toys and tools that you're going to be able to borrow, and just that, and the librarians, I just want to commend them because they've gone through extensive training now in all of these different issues. They've sat through, I think, about maybe 10 sessions with me on different issues. So I want to highly commend the staff at Sligo, Leitrim and Roscommon libraries. Thank you so much for showing, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of our webinar series. Thank you very much. Good night. Rest well. Bye now. Alton's going to shut this down for us.